Hello, everyone. Looks like we're live on Facebook. I am so happy that you can join me, those of you who are joining me tonight and for the replay. I'm excited to celebrate the pre-release of A Wicked Conceit, which is coming out Tuesday. It's Lady Darby Book 9. I love doing these events for my loyal readers. This is really just for you. It's just to have some fun, to build your excitement about the book's release next week, and to share some behind the scenes information, and to hear your Q&As and all that. So if you have any questions or comments you'd like to share or for me to answer, just post them in the comments. I'm also running several giveaways. I have two $25 bookstore gift cards to an independent bookstore or of your choice, or Barnes & Noble. And I am also giving away the chance to name a character in the next Lady Darby book, number 10, which will be out in 2022. Yes, 2022. That sounded weird saying it. And it's called A Perilous Perspective. So I hope you'll comment for your chance to enter to win. The prize is not associated with Facebook, I have to say that. And the winner will be chosen tomorrow on April 1st, 2021, at around 8 p.m. So you have about 24 hours to enter. So those of you who couldn't make it have a chance to comment. I am Facebook streaming. So, and this is the first time I'm trying some new technology. So you all are my guinea pigs a little bit. And I hope this is working correctly. And so I may have a few hiccups, and that's okay. I hope you guys will bear with me. And I wanted to share that I have some behind the scenes information posted to my, to the event page for this event, which I will link to in the comments when the event is over. That way it's easy to find. That way, if you'd like to see all of the, pictures of fashion and old Edinburgh and some of the other things that I have going on in the book, those are all posted to the behind the scenes page. Yay, there, I finally found your Facebook comments. Awesome. Just making sure it works. So good. So yes, if you'd like to see all this behind the scene information, the pictures especially, I know a lot of my readers really love when I post those. So I thought if I put them all in one place, it makes it easy. So you check those out if you're interested. So I'm going to kick it off. I'm going to read a couple of exclusive excerpts from the book, just to get you raring to go for book 9. I know there's so much. I set up a lot of things through the books leading up to book 9 that need to be resolved. So I'm sure those of you who remember and are rereading know, Kira's been keeping a secret from Gage. She's had a fight with her sister. She's very pregnant. So there's a lot of things that coming into this book needed to be resolved. So I'm excited for all of you to read it and hear your thoughts on it. So the first excerpt I'm going to read is this from early in the book. Alana is holding a dinner party because she thinks she needs to bolster Kira and Gage's reputation. So here we go. Though I knew Alana would scold, I couldn't resist sneaking upstairs away from the party for a short time. 3 hours of feigning goodwill and making pleasant small talk while still minding my tongue had given me a ferocious headache. If I didn't sit quietly for a few minutes, I feared I might do something regrettable, like slap the feral grin off Lady Kinnear's and Mrs. De Quincey's faces. And so it was that I managed to steal 4 entire minutes of silence before my cousin Morven peered around the door into my old bedchamber to find me seated on the settee before the dormant fire. Her dark gleaming hair had been swept into the high bows on her head, now fashionable among society, the rich color accentuated by the lilac silk and white crepe of her gown. Good heavens, she exclaimed upon finding a gray cat perched precariously on what little room remained of my lap. I do believe that is the most rotund feline I have ever seen. Yes, well, you would be just as round too if you had children sneaking you treats all day. I smiled down at Earl Grey, who arched his chin to give me a better access to scratch it. He had once been a mouser at Blake Law House, my childhood home, but had managed to worm his way into my heart with his loyal, undemanding affection. He had a knack for finding his way into places I didn't wish him to be, but when conversely I needed him most, a knack he still seemed to possess. Morven rested one hand on the door while planting the other on her hip. Her enormous blonde lace-trimmed sleeves nearly touched the bed frame some feet away. I thought he was your cat. He was, but the children were so fond of him, and he them, that I decided he would be better off here. Perhaps for his self-consequence, but not for his health, she quipped. Did Alana send you to find me? The manner in which she scrutinized my features told me I hadn't done a good job of masking my irritation with my sister. Your husband, actually. He thought it might look too conspicuous if he slipped out. Said I would find you here, either here or in the nursery. My lips curled reflexively that he knew me so well. The children are asleep. She advanced into the room, reaching out to pat the top of Earl Grey's head. I suspected. Alana always was better than I am at finding nursemaids who can make the children mind. Oh, now you're in heaven, aren't you? She crooned to the cat. Why'd you name him after the Prime Minister? I shrugged. It seemed to suit him. And he's gray. I looked up to find her face alive with amusement. Is that funny? It is, actually. But I'm more amused with you, hiding up here with a fat cat. I frowned. I'm not hiding. I couldn't care less what those gossips think, though I know Alana wishes me to be more civil than to tell them that to their faces. That's not entirely true, she replied much too reasonably. But in any case, they're not the people you're hiding from. Her eyes lifted to bore into mine. Are they? I didn't respond. There was no need to. She already knew she was correct. Morven shook her head and resumed her petting. For all that you two are the closest sisters I know, you can be remarkably obtuse about each other. I glowered at her, uncertain whether I should take offense. Have you tried talking to her? When I can get a word in edgewise between her reproaches. Morven sighed and stood upright, crossing her arms over her chest. Have you told her you're investigating the anonymous author of The King of Grassmarket? I paused in my ministrations of Earl Grey, who whined in protest before sinking his head onto the mound of my abdomen. How did you know about that? Jack saw you entering Rookwood Publishing this morning, so it stood to reason that's why you were there. It was my turn to sigh, this time in aggravation. Given the fact she thinks you're taking a respite from investigating, don't you think you should inform your sister before she finds out from someone else? Finds out what? Alana demanded to know as she entered the room. Her gaze riveted on me before dipping to my cat. She cringed. Oh, Kira, I know you love that cat, but now is hardly the time to pet him. Your skirt will be covered with hair, if not ruined from his claws. I resumed petting him in silent defiance. She huffed. Now, what am I not to find out? Morven turned to me, her eyebrows communicating both an apology and an insistence I be the one to tell her. Gage and I are attempting to uncover the author's real identity. There was no need to specify which author, for there was only one writer on all of our minds at the moment. I braced for anger and umbrage, but Alana surprised me by nodding in hearty agreement. Good. He should be held accountable for his spurious accusations, and so should his publisher. I blinked in astonishment, something that my sister found as vexing as Morven found humorous, covering her mouth with her hand. Stop gawping at me like a fish, Alana ordered. This is a case of libel, not murder. She turned toward the mirror, adjusting the gold bracelets at the end of each of her long tulle gigot sleeves and straightened the wide collar. Now push that cat off your lap and come back downstairs before all the guests remark upon your absence. Thank heavens you have your condition to make excuses for you. She paused at the door to issue one last parting shot. And quit scowling at your husband, or next we'll be hearing rumors of your unhappy marriage and what precisely led to such a state. Alana had scarcely disappeared before Morven burst out laughing. My apologies, she gasped. But your face, you should have known how your sister would react, you ninny. Is she not as ferocious as a Greek fury whenever one of your loved ones is threatened? Morven was right. Alana had always been fiercely protective of her family, including me. Whether she was defending me from a young lord trifling with my affections, the ridicule of society, or the barbarous slander printed in the newspaper, my sister had always been one of my staunchest supporters, which was why her most recent actions and criticisms had been so bewildering and hurtful. That's the first excerpt, your exclusive sneak peek. So I was going to take some Q&As now if anybody has posted any. Let's see. I don't know if Facebook is moving a little slow. My goodness, why doesn't it show me all? Yes, Alana could be. Well, it's so interesting. I love the discussion that's gone on about Alana and Kira and their relationship. And I find that the readers who are younger sisters versus older sisters, versus different, there's about a 50-50 split about who empathizes more with Alana in this situation versus Kira. And I think it has to do a lot with personal experience. And when you've had, siblings, if you're an older sister and you've had to shoulder or had situations similar to what you've run into with Kira, or when if you're younger and you've had overbearing, or it doesn't even have to be a sister, it could be another situation. So I found it very interesting that there's been such a difference of opinion in regards to the way people have reacted to their argument. And I love that everyone seems to be very, into it. So, it means a lot that, oh my goodness, I'm trying to read all your comments and this is not cooperating. So let me get this set. There we go. Here we go. All right. All the way back. What was your favorite part of the research? So for this book, I read a fabulous story that's called Murder by the Book. And it's by, what is her name? Claire, excuse me a second. Claire Harmon. And it actually inspired the plot of this book. It's about the murder of Lord William Russell in London in 1840, I believe, 1839-40. So it's a little bit later than the Lady Darby series is set. And it has to do with the fact, in this book, I explore the plays that are popular and the books that are popular. The new genre is called Newgate Novels, and they were about criminals and thieves and murderers that had gotten away with stuff. Most of them were already dead. And they were almost glamorizing them, these criminals. And there was one in particular called Jack Sheppard. He had been a thief in the early 1700s. And he had escaped from Newgate multiple times. And this book was written about him by Henry Williams Ainsworth. Anyway, and it was huge. It was so popular. And at that time, theaters did not have to pay the author to use their material. So all the theaters in London and all over the UK were making their own versions of Jack Sheppard. And it was just hugely popular. Anyway, there was a murder that was committed and his valet was arrested. And he basically implicated the fact that he saw the Jack Sheppard play and it gave him kind of the idea. And so then it became this whole big scandal. It made me think about when I was growing up, it was all video games. So video games were going to make everybody violent and commit crimes. And so these things come around and go around. But I thought to myself, this would be perfect for Bonnie Brock. He's this huge criminal, this criminal mastermind. He's hugely popular in Edinburgh. He's the head of the biggest gang. What if someone wrote a book about him? How would he feel? And, what would happen? So, and what if Cage and Kira were implicated? So, so that's where the idea came from. And that was probably my favorite part of the research. It was just really interesting. And looking into ballads and things that were written. I kind of use one of the ballads that is in the Jack Sheppard play called Nix My Dolly that was in Cant. But the upper classes were doing it. Children were playing their violin. There was sheet music of it for their violin that was played on the bells of a church cathedral. It was everywhere, just like popular songs of today. So it was interesting. Oh, yay. I'm glad this makes it harder to wait for the book. That was what I was hoping. I was hoping you guys would get really excited about the book release. So it's kind of fun to do it like a pre-release and to give you some exclusive content. So I'm glad you guys love the sisters' relationship. I do too. And I hope it really comes across as authentic, the two of them and their interaction and all of that. Oh, yay. I'm glad you're rereading. That's awesome. I always love hearing that. I'm just kind of reading all your comments and any questions. How can I write so fluently about British Scots? Excuse me, when you're so clearly American. I'm definitely American. I've always been fascinated with the UK, especially in the last 15, 20 years. Done tons of research. I've traveled there. Oh my goodness, my throat's like froggy all of a sudden. Anyway, so I just, watching things, listening to things, reading things, just kind of immersing myself. And I always am very flattered when people say that it comes across authentically, because I try very hard. I know it's not perfect as an American for sure. But yeah, I love that people say that. So I'm glad that it does. I thank you. I do a lot of research, and I take a lot of pride in that. Just to try my absolute best to get, everything as correct as I can. Like I said, it's impossible. And there's times when you just have to stop and start writing, or the book will never get done. If I research as much as I feel like I need to, I would never have the books written. So, but yes, I do a lot of research, a lot of, like I said, immersing myself, reading, just collecting different, just data points of different things. I have so many random things, so many random lists, but I love it. Can't dictionaries to try to do the language right and all that kind of stuff. Let's see. My motivation to become an author. I started writing when I was about in fourth grade. I started writing stories. I just loved it. It was just something fun that I did as a kid. I still have them packed away somewhere. And I wrote until, I don't know, junior high school, when things kind of, started doing other extracurriculars. My other great love is music. And I ended up choosing to study music. I went to college, got my degree in music, and I graduated, and I was pursuing that and doing other things, and which is a tough industry. And I was, when I was out of school, I was finally able to start reading again. And I was remembering how much I loved writing. And so that's kind of how I fell back into it again. I was reading the things I love to read. And so then I thought, I'm just going to give it a try. And so I did, and I just got hooked, and I realized it was what I really wanted to do. And kind of the rest, that's all, that's my history. So I just kept going. And as far as, I don't know if there was a motivation. It was just something I loved. I wanted to do a job I loved. And it works great too that, I can be home with my girls and spend time with them, but also get my writing done. And there's a lot of advantages to it. So I love reading all of your things, telling me, who you identify with and who you don't. And it's just fun. It's fun to see you guys invested in my characters. That is the biggest compliment to me, that they feel that real. And I love it. I just love it. And I appreciate that when you share that with me. How much time do I spend researching background information before you start writing? Or is the research interspersed with bouts of writing? I do. So before I start a whole series, like a new time period, I do a ton of research just on the time period, because you've got to immerse yourself in language and clothing and food and just the history, those kind of things. And then for each book, I know when I figure out what the plot's going to be, I know what areas I need to research. So some books, there's really a lot of intensive research. Other books, there's not. But I do that beforehand. And then as I'm writing, I definitely am doing research when things pop up. I always have my etymology dictionary open, because I'm constantly checking phrases and words, whether they were used in that time period or not. So that's a big thing I'm always researching. And I still get tripped up because there's words that you think, oh, surely this is really old. And then you find out later, oh no, this is like really modern. And it sounds like an old word, but it's not. So you do your best. Did Burke and Hare get the glamour treatment in books of the time? Well, they were huge villains. I mean, they were despised. They were hated, vilified. I mean, they were, definitely, I wouldn't say glamorized, because I think because those murders were modern. People lived through them. They lived through the terror of, that they'd been haunting their streets. Were there other Burkers haunting the streets doing the same things they were? So it was very different. It was very personal. Whereas the ones that were in the Newgate novels had been dead. And so they weren't a threat to them, I guess is how I would say it, in their minds. So there was and it was the way they were portrayed in the books too. I mean, I think they got away with it because they were dead. So with the Bonnie Brock, that's why there's a little twist to this. So, and I don't want to give too much away, but hopefully you guys will enjoy it. And there's a lot of Bonnie Brock in this book, which I know you guys love Bonnie Brock. I love Bonnie Brock too. So it was a lot of fun to get to write more of him and to reveal more of his backstory. So there's that to look forward to. Did I have an overview of where I wanted to go with the whole series when I started? I knew I wanted to get to what happens in book 7, An Artless Demise with the London Burkers, because when I'd crafted Kira's background with the body snatchers and her husband being an anatomist and forcing her to help with to sketch his dissections and all of that, the vilification of her, the scandal, I knew that I wanted to get to the London Burkers because she needed to be there. She needed to be somehow part of it. And that would kind of give somewhat of an arc and a closure to it. But then beyond that, when I first started the series, I had not plotted beyond that. And I hadn't even really plotted, I would say. I just knew what the over arc was and some of the places along the way that I wanted to hit. So yeah. So, and now I know, having gone beyond that, I know where I want to go till about book 14 or 15. So I'm hoping that I get to go that far. We'll see. So, but I do have that arc in mind now. So, and it's kind of interesting because I do tie up several things in book 9 or tie them up to a certain extent. So I almost get to start some new things, some new threads in book 10. So, what inspired you to focus on this period in Scottish English history? So for Lady Darby, I picked this time period, one, because it wasn't being utilized. There was a lot of fictional stories in the Regency era, and there was a lot set in the Victorian, but nobody was really using this reign of William IV. And there's so much good history that goes on. It's such the change, the time period. It's just the political upheaval and the social upheaval and industrial, all these things going on. And it doesn't get focused on a lot. And that was part of it. I wanted to kind of just make it mine. And then also because I chose to give Kira that background, that anatomy and the body snatchers and all of that, because the Burkers, the Burke and Hare were 28, 29, and the London Burkers is 1831. So, and then the Anatomy Act is coming up in 1832 that we know finally passes, that changes kind of things, even though everything doesn't change immediately, even with the law, just like today, so that was why I picked the time period. Really, it was just those two big reasons. So who are my favorite authors? What do you like to read? I love reading when I write. So I read a lot of historical fiction, historical mysteries, romance, kind of within those genres. And I love nonfiction too. I like history books and just straight, history, those kind of things. My favorite author of all time is Mary Stuart. I love Gothics. And then, just a lot of historical mystery authors. I do try to post reviews or at least ratings of books that I have read on Goodreads and BookBub. So if you're really interested in what I like or what I've been reading, follow me either of those places or check them out. I also in Goodreads keep a list of all my research material for my series. I may need to update that, but I try to keep it up to date so that if you're ever just curious what books I've read for research, there's a good chunk of them listed on those lists. So because I get asked a lot, what are your materials? So, oh yes, I do too. I think music is so important, all types. It really does help express emotion. It's a universal language. There's so much depth to music that gives humanity. It's just, yeah, I could go on and on about music. So, oh, thank you. I'm so glad you love Kira and Gage. And that, yes, they do challenge each other. Did I have the sort of slow burn relationship arc plotted out? Yes, I did. I had that all at the beginning. For me, it was the balance of Kira has been so damaged that I didn't want to rush it because that just doesn't feel real. It isn't real, especially for people who've been in that situation. And she's still dealing with that, even through book 9. And they've been married now for almost a year. And, it doesn't just go away. It isn't like you're suddenly better. I mean, when you've been in an abusive relationship, you deal with it for years. I mean, so I wanted to not be glib about that because there's a lot of people that have lived with that. And it was important to me to be authentic, but it's also a fictional universe. So things do move faster than they would move in real life. So it's finding that balance of not being overly fast and, making it less serious than it was, but also being fast enough that readers aren't getting frustrated and bored with, okay, come on, let's go. So there's kind of that balance in fiction. Oh my goodness, if Lady Darby series was made into a movie, who would you cast? I always have trouble with this, especially with Kira and Gage. Kira, I have no idea. I struggle with her because when I write, I'm writing in her head. So I'm looking out through her eyes. I'm not looking at her. So she's almost like a feeling for me, less than what she looks like. So I don't really know. Gage, I've always said that he is a cross. When I created him, in my mind, he was a cross in looks between Rupert Penry Jones, especially when he plays Captain Wentworth in Persuasion, the version he does, and Simon Baker, like from The Mentalist. He's kind of a hybrid of them. They're both too old now, although Simon Baker would be an excellent Lord Gage. Gage's father. But as far as Gage himself, I don't know. It's really tricky. I do really like George McKay, who played in 1917. He could possibly, he's an interesting, potential, but that's always wishful thinking, obviously. And in my mind, I'm kind of glad maybe I don't know, because then I'm not set on, I could be surprised, pleasantly surprised, so. Oh yes. My post about burying dead bodies under endangered plant species so they didn't get dug up. I just thought that was funny. It's not actually a future plot. Somebody had posted that somewhere else, and I just thought that was hilarious. So, it would be an interesting story. I think a lot of mystery authors got ideas from that. What's my writing schedule like? So I write most days. I'll just give you my usual schedule. I have 2 young girls. So usually I get up with my first grader and get her on the bus. And then I get to work. And my husband watches our 4-year-old until she goes down for quiet time in her room after lunch. And then when my first grader gets off the bus, I get her up from quiet time. I get her off the bus, and then I watch the girls in the afternoon. So and that's, Monday through Friday. That's my optimal. That doesn't always happen. Hiccups. This has been a crazy week. Our furnace went out late last week, and it got freezing, and it was a really crazy early week. We've got it fixed now, thank goodness. And my first grader was sick the one day, and I mean, we've had a couple of just different hiccups this week. So some weeks you just kind of roll with it. You get done what you can get done, and that's all you can do. So just like any parent, any person does. So, but yeah, that's my optimal week is that. Yes. Wildfire at Midnight. Any of Mary Stewart's romantic suspense books. I just love them. I mean, they're behind me on the shelf right behind me. I think you can see them in the screen. So it's great. Yep. Rupert Penry Jones is my favorite Captain Wentworth. He's great. So, um, do we find out more about Marsdale? Probably is who you mean. Marsdale, so he's a big part of book 8, obviously, A Stroke of Malice. And I do have plans for seeing him again. He's not in book 9. Wicked Conceit, and he's not going to be in book 10. But hopefully in a future book, you will see him. He will be a big part of a future book soon coming up. So I love him too. He's just such a rogue. Who would I cast as Monty Brock? Oh my goodness. I don't know. I really don't know. He's another tough one. I just love him. He is that character that he was supposed to be a one-off in one like scene in A Grave Matter. And he's like, nope, I'm not going anywhere. He just stayed. He was like, nope, I'm staying. You have to write more scenes about me. And so I just love him. He's just that guy, that kind of character in my subconscious. So do I have any favorite writing tools or applications? I do not use anything really special. I just use Word. Same thing when I make my outlines. I just do it in Word usually. I do sometimes use a big, huge piece of paper to help me kind of plot things out to begin with, because then I can kind of grid it and then I kind of plug it into an outline. Sometimes I write, if I'm stuck, I'll start writing in a notebook with a pen and paper, just because it's a different part of the brain. And it just helps me get unstuck. But really, yeah, I don't really use anything super special. Just the normal, and I listen to music a lot of times because to block out noise and all that. So I have headphones on, but let's see. I do. So so there's plotters who plot rigidly, and there's pantsers who just write off the cuff. I call myself a plotter because I'm kind of a mix. I have to have some kind of plot, some kind of outline to follow, or I will be totally lost. But I don't like to plot it so rigidly that I can't go with inspiration. I find my books are better when I give myself breathing room, because my subconscious always comes up with better ideas as I'm writing than I ever could have beforehand. So I kind of do both. I used to plot out who the killer was from the very beginning. Now I do not because I kept changing. I get to the end and be like, nope, this is way better. My mind would. And I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I'll change this. So now I basically set it up that could be, 5 or so people. I have certain suspects and how that could work out. And then as I get towards the end, my mind decides, and then I go back through edits and smooth everything out so that it works. So let's see. You love Sir Anthony. Such a fact. Yeah, I know. And he's tricky, isn't he? He is dead, but he is the main villain. Yeah. It's so funny when I do think about if the book ever is made into a TV show, movie, whatever the books are, that they'll have to have flashback scenes, because it's so much easier to do that in a film thing. So that would be interesting. I have a lot of the scenes I can just imagine and play out in my head, and what music they should put to it, and all that. So it's good to dream, right? The baby, well, she's 9 months pregnant in this one. So I think you can assume that, yes, the baby is a big part of this book. So I don't want to spoil, but yeah, I promise I'm not going to drag it on forever. She's not going to be an 11th month baby. Writing her as a mother is I'm working on that right now. So anyway, first outline to finished book. With my writing schedule, I'm usually doing a new book every 4 to 6 months. So that's kind of because I have deadlines. So that's what I have to do. And that's including research, which often starts the book. It'll either start with research, or it starts with a very brief, 3-paragraph idea for the story, and then more research, and then the outline. So, yeah. I'm glad you guys love that he's such a good villain. So, all right. Well, I am going to read this a second exclusive excerpt. This one's between Kira and Gage in her art studio. So, and then I'm going to take some more Q&A and anything else you guys want to talk about. So, all right, here we go. That evening, Gage did not find me sketching, but rather perched on my stool, staring at the half-dozen easels which propped up my partially completed portraits, each one still draped in sailcloth to protect them. I wasn't entirely certain how or why I ended up in my studio, except perhaps because my art had always been my solace, my comfort, my constant when the world around me shifted. Kira, Gage murmured, pulling me from my thoughts. I turned to look up at him, I turned to look at him as he advanced hesitantly into the room, surveying its dusty contents, including the special set of shelves he had built for me the year before to store all of my supplies. In fact, I could smell sawdust clinging to his coat now, amid the scents of bay rum and his horse, telling me that one of the places he'd visited that afternoon had been the wood shop he occasionally used at a friend's estate a few miles to the north. This was his third trip there in as many weeks, and I knew he was constructing something, likely for the baby, but I didn't want to ruin his surprise. What did Dr. Fenwick say? Is the baby well? Though he spoke calmly, I could see the strain tightening his jaw. Oh, yes, the baby and I are perfectly healthy. He exhaled a relieved breath, and I stood to wrap my arm around his waist. I didn't mean to worry you. He smiled down at me before pulling me closer. Then why are you up here in a brown study? How do you know I wasn't composing a painting in my mind? I countered. I told him before that half the work was done in cognitive preparation before I ever set brush to canvas. He reached out to clasp my chin between his thumb and forefinger, because you could do so in a much more comfortable setting. Perhaps the lingering odors of linseed oil and turpentine inspire me. His gaze softened. Perhaps, but they didn't stamp that furrow of worry upon your brow. How do you know that furrow indicates worry? Maybe it's a sign of concentration. Kira, he chastised gently, halting any further attempts to distract him. His fingers fanned out along my jaw, the callous pads of their tips lightly abrading my skin. I can tell when something is troubling you. His pale blue eyes searched mine, but rather than reassuring me, his words only made me more aware of all the things that were currently troubling me. All the things I was currently keeping from him. As if sensing my unease, he added, but if you'd rather not tell me, I won't pry. I considered telling him about Lord Henry, but then dismissed the notion. Not now, not when I was already smarting from Alana's disapproval and rejection. I couldn't stand to face him as well. Alana was here today, I finally said. He nodded, plainly trying to figure out where this was leading. For your appointment? Yes. Well, she was supposed to be anyway. I frowned and remembered disbelief. But she was late, very late. And she didn't seem to even realize it until she glanced at the clock in our drawing room. And that troubles you? A little. I worried one of the gold buttons on Gage's coat between my fingers, struggling to put it into words. It's not like her. She was frazzled when she arrived, yet it clearly wasn't about the time. She was probably just preoccupied with something, a matter with her children or Philip. He brushed his fingers through the wisps of hair that curled against my neck. You shouldn't let it overconcern you. I nodded without lifting my eyes, cognizant that I was stalling, as was Gage, ever attuned to the things I didn't say as much as the things I did. And what did she say? I peered up to him through my lashes before focusing on his button again. That I make a spectacle of myself. When he didn't immediately reply, I risked another glance up at him to find him scowling. And I presume this preluded another attempt by her to convince you to stop assisting me in our inquiries. It was more of a scolding than an attempt to convince me, but yes. Gage huffed. I thought you and your sister had made up, that she'd accepted that this is your decision to make. I felt a pulse of annoyance. Was he being deliberately obtuse? He had heard some of Alana's barbed comments. It's more like she accepted our decision to take a respite from any murderous inquiries until after the baby is born as an indication that we agreed with her and would continue to do so. Kira, he cupped my face in his hands, forcing me to look up at him. You do not have to agree with her, and you are not wrong for it. In fact, I would go so far as to say you are very right. Then I'm not displaying a lack of maturity and motherly instinct by choosing not to conform. I asked, both craving his reassurance and hating that I needed it. Shouldn't I be strong enough by now to know my own mind and stand firm in it? Is that what she said? There was no need to respond, for the answer was obvious. His head dipped so that our foreheads nearly touched. I didn't fall in love with you because you conform. I fell in love with you because you are instinctively, unabashedly, unequivocally you, with all your brilliance and eccentricities. And that is the woman I want our children to have as a mother, not some diluted version of yourself, where you mute your vibrant reds and blues into conformist grays and browns. I blinked rapidly as tears began to fill my eyes and squeaked, really? He smiled that tender, private little smile that I knew was only ever for me. Really. His lips pressed to mine as if sealing a promise, and I returned the pledge. Yay, Kira engaged, right? So, I hope you liked the second excerpt, and I hope that makes you excited. I'm flipping through your comments. Yeah, sigh, yay. I love games too. So if you guys have any other questions or comments, I am happy to answer them or discuss them. I'm looking through my notes to make sure I'm not forgetting to tell you guys anything fabulous. I have a couple things to tell you at the end, and yeah, so I'll leave it for that. Okay, I don't see any more comments. So yes, so I have an exciting announcement that's going to be coming on April 16th. So you should look for that. I want to let you know to keep your eyes peeled. I'm super excited about it, and I hope that all of you will be too. So stay tuned for that. The book does come out on Tuesday, A Wicked Conceit, and it's up for pre-order everywhere. I hope you'll support independent bookstores, but it is for sale everywhere books are sold. Let's see, the giveaway. Don't forget the giveaway. So if you commented, you are entered. And you have until about 8 p.m. Tomorrow, April 1st, so about 24 hours to comment, to enter. I've got two $25 bookstore gift cards to give away, either to an independent bookstore or Barnes & Noble. And I have a chance to name a character in Lady Darby Book 10, A Perilous Perspective. So there's 3 prizes. So I hope you'll comment to enter, whether you're watching now or later. Let's see. Oh, I do have a couple questions. I'll jump in and answer those. Let's see. I'm thinking of going to England once this whole quarantine thing is over. Me too. we were supposed to do research last year, and that got canceled. So hopefully. Top Lady Darby locations. Oh my goodness. Okay, so yes, I did create a map that is pretty comprehensive of all the locations that are featured in the Lady Darby series, whether they visit them or they mention them. And that is linked on my website. That's the easiest place to find all of this. A lot of it is in the news section or the other pages. So www.annaleehuber.com. And let's see, top locations. Well, Edinburgh, I just love. All of Edinburgh, the New Town, the Old Town, the Royal Mile, all that. Let's see, it's easy to say London, but I'm trying to think of some other places. Dartmoor is gorgeous. If you have a chance to go to Dartmoor, it's just beautiful. It really was such an inspiration. I wanted to do it justice in A Brush with Shadows because it just is such a beautiful, mysterious, atmospheric location. So highly recommend Dartmoor. The Highlands, I love the Highlands. I'm trying to think specific spots, and the Borders. It's beautiful in the Borders where I have Kira's childhood home. The Abbeys there, Dryborough and Melrose and Kelso. There's Jedburgh. There's I don't even know how many right in that one little area. You can almost visit them all in one day if you have a car. So, because we went to several of them. So yeah, I guess those would be my top ones that I would mention right now. Yeah, I'm not sure. Where can I find a man like Gage? They're out there. I have hope. Let's see. Do you find it difficult to switch between your series? I do. Not really. I think it's because even though they're only 90 years apart, they're so different with culture and language in particular. So if I start writing Lady Darby and I'm speaking like I'm in 1920s London, I know that I'm not in the right voice, the right head of my character. So, and vice versa. So I've never really had a big problem, I think, because of that. There are times when I feel like it's hard to get traction in one of the characters after I've been in the other one's head for a while, but it's more that I just need to cleanse out and then jump back in. So, let's see, how do you come up with your titles? Some of them I come up with, and some of them my publisher does. I think I've come up with more than they have, but yeah, it's tricky. And I've even asked readers, my Fanatics group, the street team, which if you're interested in, check out my page, the groups, to help me come up with titles and other things, names for babies and all those kind of things. So, and dogs, and I've had a lot of fun with them. So, it's either me or my publisher, or it's kind of or a combination. We work together. So, they're kind of just, I don't know, with Lady Darby, it's always an art term I try to work in, and then something mystery sounding, and Verity Kent's a little trickier. But anyway, so it's kind of a combination of different things. I'm so glad you love the map. It was work to do, but had been wanting to do it forever, and so glad that I did. And now every new book, it'll be easy to just add the locations for the new book. I would love to do a book tour someday. That would be awesome to have a book tour, like those travel companies set up, and I go and the readers join me or whatever. That would be that would be wonderful. I know they do like Outlander tours, I think, but I don't think Diana Gabaldon goes to all of them, but that would be a lot. But you know what I mean? So, will I add a musical character? I don't, I would love to do something to do with music at some point, a mystery or a new series, or I don't know, who knows. I would say definitely my musical background informs my art. It's because it's an art mindset. And so it does inform me and help me in the way Kira thinks and the way I've created her and all that kind of stuff. So it kind of interplays. But yeah, I'd love to do a musical mystery sometime. I would love to do another anthology like The Deadly Hours also. There's nothing in the works at the moment, but it's always a possibility. So anyway, I think that's all the questions, and I'm gonna close out the questions, but if I missed yours and you want to post it again, I will try to come in and answer. But yes, so be sure to comment so that you can enter the giveaway, like I already recapped. And I have a lot of upcoming events. If you want to check out my website, the events page on annaleehuber.com has all of the upcoming events. I will be virtually at Murder by the Book on Tuesday, release day, with Tessa Arlen. On Wednesday, the 7th, I'll be with Poison Pen, the Poison Pen with C.S. Harris. And then I'm also have a couple library events. I'll be with Carmel Clay Public Library on Thursday morning, the 8th. Yes. And then there's a couple other events coming up. There's an author chat. Oh, I want to announce this. I'm doing a series of author chats every month. I just think it would be a lot of fun to just kind of do some informal chats. For April, I'm going to be chatting with Rachel McMillan and Ashley Weaver. And in let's see, April. And in May, I'm going to be chatting with Amanda Flower and Julian Lindsay. And there's a couple more coming up. I'll be announcing, or some of them have been announced. So that'll be a lot of fun, just us kind of chatting and talking and taking your questions and interacting. So you kind of get a sneak peek at to spy on us chatting with each other and ask us questions too. So, and I think that's everything, other than to say a big thank you for joining me. This has been a lot of fun. I hope you're really excited about the book coming out next week. And I hope you'll check out some of the other events and let me know, what you think, and be sure to leave your reviews. I'm always grateful for any reviews at the review sites, as all authors are. So thank you very much. And I hope you guys all have a wonderful evening, and wish you all the best.